This beauty guru, he literally pushed me out of the way. He shoved me, physically put his hands on me and shoved me out of the way.
And this is not a downer on anybody there, but just I felt like I was the adult and like with all these kids kind of deal.
Oh, that's how I feel
just
too.
Feel seasoned, I guess, in a certain way. So before we jumped into today's episode, I wanted to bring up something that I had mentioned to you, but I think everybody here needs to be aware of just in the changing social media landscape of it all. I believe TikTok, when the ban was happening, they had some changes happening with their other app, Lemon 8, which as some people who were researching it would know that if the ban happened to TikTok, it would have happened to Lemon 8 as well. But there was a time where I connected my TikTok to my Lemon 8. This was months before the ban even happened. Right around the ban, I was asked to connect my TikTok. And I remember texting Latasha and I said, I already did this, but this time around when I did it, I had 6,000 more followers. And I was thinking, did they just copy over everyone that, I think you had mentioned it before on an app that asked, do you want to follow everybody that you follow?
Threads did that when they came out.
Threads did that? Okay. So yeah, like, do you want to follow
followers.
everybody that you already follow on Instagram? And if people select yes, they would be automatically built in. And I just thought it was interesting because this TikTok sale is happening really slowly. And I imagine it to happen probably not for another couple of months even. Meanwhile, I'm getting 30 followers a day on Lemon 8, but barely any engagement on the post, even though I am posting, just the engagement is like 8 likes. But then I'm getting 30 followers for that same day that I only got 8 likes for. And my thought, and everybody can kind of maybe share their perspective too, is that they're like, go ahead and buy TikTok because ByteDance isn't getting banned from the US now. But we're going to promote Lemon 8, which is essentially like a glorified Instagram that even has some more aspects to it that I think are pretty cool and fun. And we're just going to shift everyone over and maybe do that. But I just thought that was interesting. And it's for anyone who doesn't know, it's Lemon, the word 8, the number. And it's been around for a while. But yeah, I just thought that like shift was interesting. And I'm kind of seeing how, I'm sure I'll have like 10K followers probably within like a month or two. Easy.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
So Lemonade's owned by TikTok?
It's owned by ByteDance, yeah.
ByteDance. So I don't understand. This is like, obviously we'll keep you guys posted, I guess, if we're back at the TikTok ban again. But my understanding was that it was any ByteDance app because that's why CapCut's part of it.
It's part of the ban, but they are not doing the ban anymore. They're just selling TikTok, or they're focusing on maybe a forced sale of TikTok itself.
Yeah.
Because it really didn't go to the root of the problem initially, which was just data and privacy, or things like that. And for all
but I thought CapCut was part of the forced sale. That's why it was removed from the app stores.
Correct. But that ban, which was covering everything, got pulled back. So then that's why.
But it's just a pause, right? But it's just a pause. I think we only have
but in a lot of things I'm reading too, they're like, now TikTok's saying they might like bend whatever they need to make it work. They're just forcing this.
It's all up in the air, I think, is the answer.
I just thought it was interesting of like, especially with like Lemonade, like now they're like shifting everyone there. I'm like, what do they know that makes it so where like Lemonade might be sticking around? Because why else?
It's weird because also Facebook has been prompting people to connect their TikToks too, so that a lot of people are theorizing, is Meta. I think nobody knows.
No, outside nobody knows the exact. That's why I'm like, I just like wanted to contribute a little chatter because I'm like, it's interesting seeing it from like the POV of like my Lemonade's growing really well.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? But beside the point, today we really wanted to talk about the base topic of networking in the content creator community, which, as you can see, is a benefit because like Latasha and I meeting, we can have conversations like this, which help to make sense of the crazy digital world that we all are a part of, or maybe you're just getting into yourself if you're listening.
Yeah.
And so We just want to talk about the benefits. Do you feel like throughout your time, from maybe like, let's talk about like the get go, like when you first started, how was networking? Because that was a different time than we are now, to
Mhm.
where being a content creator was not a
A
thing.
thing. Yeah. It was a different time, and it's so funny because like it's so weird to me that content creation is this job that so many people want to do now. Because when I first started back in like the blogging days and the very, very early, even like Instagram days, it was kind of a weird, nerdy thing to do. You
Right. I
know,
remember that too.
yeah, I mean, my YouTube channel, I've said it before on this podcast, like I used a pseudonym. I didn't want anyone to find me. I didn't tell any of my friends or family about it because it was like this dorky thing, this dorky
Hmm.
hobby that I had. So I think networking in the like traditional sense or the way that we think of it now was not so much a thing in the early days. It
Hmm.
was more about just like making friends on the internet, making
Yeah,
random friends on the
I can
internet.
see that. Is that what
Hmm.
inspired your first merch line of internet friends, or what was
Yeah,
it? Internet people?
internet kid. Yeah.
Internet.
I always say that. I'm like, I'm an internet person, like there are
Yeah.
people who are internet people and who are not,
Yeah.
we all have those friends who are like, I'm like, how do you know what's going on in the world? Like you don't even have a Instagram or a
Nothing.
like
Right.
nothing. They're just out here living life. I'm kind of jealous in some
Right.
ways, but and then there are people who are kind of I think the term nowadays is like chronically online,
Yes.
the people who are connected and all the things.
No, yeah, I feel like I can vouch almost for that of initially, at least even my thought. I mean, I was somebody who was blessed enough to have like a digital camera when they were coming out because I was really craving like photography and things like that. And I was like, what's a digital camera? Wait, I can draw on the screen? That's cool.
Yeah.
Even though it looked like word art level graphics,
Yeah.
we're saying. And but I remember watching YouTube initially, and you're kind of like, people, I think it's weird. People were almost more aware of what it took to make that. It took
Mm.
somebody just kind of in their room by themselves, recording and then editing a video and posting it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that like sense of awareness of what it takes to make it be a YouTuber was there more. So you knew like, okay, it's a little bit of a nerdy profession, which I say that proudly myself, if
Yeah.
I was somebody getting into it or what have you. Uh, but now it's like people look so good on camera
Hmm.
and they look like they're doing such amazing things that people forget, I think, that this person is probably like sitting hunched over their computer 7 to 10 p.m., if they're busy during the day or doing it during their workday, editing a video, or
Hmm.
having someone obviously to edit it
Well,
themselves.
it's so funny. I because so many people when they meet me, they're so surprised to hear that I would consider myself an introvert, that I'm
Hmm.
like have anxiety, like all of these things are like, you really? Like you seem so confident and so put
Right.
together. And I actually find that a lot of creators are like that, are
Yeah,
like
I
me,
I do too.
because it's a very independent career for the most part. And for me, as an introvert, as somebody who feels like I'm never listened to or never heard, I'm always like the quietest voice in the
Hmm.
room and people are always talking over me. It's like the camera doesn't interrupt me, the camera doesn't judge me, So
Stop
it
talking about me
actually,
like that, okay? I
I
try not to interrupt.
no. Uh, but yeah, it is kind of interesting. But okay, so I will say in the early days for me, networking was not really a thing. When I was doing beauty videos, my first real taste of networking came from Ipsy Generation Beauty, which the
Mhm.
OGs will remember. There were these events that were held all over from Toronto to San Francisco to LA to New York. And Michelle Phan, she's like this beauty guru, one of the early beauty gurus. It was her organization. And you would get invited to them like randomly. Like it was like, you know, the golden ticket, Willy
Right.
Wonka
Invite
style. Like,
only.
yes.
I'm guessing it's like almost like a makeup con, or,
Yeah.
or things like that.
Yep. Yeah, beauty convention with education, networking,
Oh,
things
cool.
like that.
Okay.
And so that was really the first YouTube specific kind of thing that I went to. And I went to quite a few of those, which, was terrifying, but fun also. Some
Well,
really good
because yeah, you're
memories.
getting all these people, all these introverts together. which is
Yeah.
kind of very like powerful introvert. I feel like there needs to
Yeah.
be a coined phrase there of
Yeah.
someone who's introverted, but they have like that. The English, I always tell people the English language is so limiting because like introvert, extrovert. Okay, what if I'm an introvert who feels though, like who can give that extrovert energy on camera? Then I would
Yeah.
almost want to give you a separate
Yeah.
title, or
Yep.
like description
Yeah.
kind of deal too.
Yeah. But I mean, I will say like those events, I did make a few really good connections
It's good.
over the years that like I still talk to that I, you know, would say that I became friends with. So I think this industry is very unique,
Mhm.
obviously. This career path is very unique. And having friends, having people, who you can bounce things off of is so, so important.
Okay, for everyone who doesn't know, we had a little hiccup with our last time of we started recording this and it did not work out like we
My
wanted,
audio was
unfortunately.
not plugged, or it was plugged in, but it just didn't
Yes, you see, like
work.
we need to be, we're going to be open with you so that you know that we
Oh,
do
yeah.
not have a perfect production here by any means.
And then I went on
But
vacation. So that's why we skipped a week
oh yeah, that too.
because I couldn't
But we
re-record.
talked about how we got to network in
Yeah.
that episode,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Okay, because I really do want to share that story and make
Yeah.
sure that it's heard because it's very interesting. So Latasha and I we've been friends for like what, 8, 9 years
Yeah.
now? It was like
Yeah.
right when I got
Something like
back from
that.
I lived in Chicago for 2 years and I was working at an agency and Latasha was somebody on a deck I got for influencers.
Early in like my Instagram, YouTube days, basically, where
Hmm.
I was vlogging about living in downtown Detroit,
Yeah.
pretty much.
And I believe at the time, because I was looking at your stats, you you had like 32,000 YouTube subscribers, which was a lot, especially
Yeah.
like again, this is a time even 8 or 9 years ago when YouTubers weren't a huge thing. I mean, they were maybe in the big cities, but definitely
Yeah.
not in Michigan by any means. So I got all
Hmm.
the different cities, different influencers in each one, and Latasha was only one of three that were suggested for the brand that I was working on. And it was a very big agency. So just kind of goes to show the power too of like having YouTube subscribers or just even like for people who don't maybe have a huge following, even if you have a smaller following, people will can notice you. You might be in
Hmm.
a deck somewhere. You might be on the back end of an agency where they're picking from certain people in the area, especially if you're more niche,
Yeah.
having smaller followership, I think you have all the power there.
Hmm.
But I was looking at it and I said, this girl looks really cool. And I didn't have a lot of friends when I moved back. So after giving my 2 cents, about about her to my team, which I was like, she's amazing. You need to book her. I ended up messaging her on Instagram, and I think it was that we were just talking initially,
Yeah.
right? I think that was the thing you had said of you did like that I didn't right away say like, hey, let's hang out.
Yeah, you were just like, I don't know, because you were kind of creating at that point, but you weren't
Mhm.
like, you definitely weren't
No,
fully
not to
like
this level at all.
creating video content and things like that. So
Yeah.
we would just kind of talk about Instagram and like
Mm-mm.
growth on Instagram and, just like normal chit chats,
Right.
I
No, that
guess.
was yeah, because in Chicago, for everyone who wants a little bit of a micro story in here, I started my content creator journey by one. Actually, no, this was the start. This was before I even made YouTube stuff, which was kind of inspired by Latasha, honestly, I would say. But I was trying to make like an account where I had just had a bunch of gays following me. And I'd like go to
Okay.
the hashtags for like hashtag queer related ones and I'd like
Uh-huh.
engage with their posts in hopes that they would like engage with mine. Very bad way of going about it. Eventually switched that account to like a business account and I ended up losing reach and the account
Mm,
wasn't built in a right in the correct way. It was built organically and done correctly, like done in a good way, but like
yeah.
it was a terrible way of building it. So that's how I got started in content. And so I was coming to Latasha, who was this successful person who, like, had built up things the correct way. And I think honestly, it was just cool to see. Like, you could tell from the get go, I think from my perspective, you were someone who was like authentically online, I would
Mm,
say and I think that
yeah.
was what kind of gravitated me to you even that much in addition to being cool in Detroit when I was there, whatever. I just wanted to share that little tidbit because I just thought of that in talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I think it is important for people to learn how to do that, and that's
Mhm.
something that I've never really done. This is why introverts need extroverted friends. Um, But yeah, like, especially if you live in a small, not that Detroit is small, but it's not New York or
It's
LA,
smaller.
where you think of,
Yeah.
oh, if I want to make it as a full-time content creator, or if I want to make other cool content creator friends, I either have to live in one of these big cities or I need to go to events, like I said, get
Right.
invited to these big cons, which can be expensive because I had to pay for my travel to go to them. So it was like a
Oh,
gamble.
I didn't know that. That's
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah. And so that's not the only way to meet people. There are,
Mhm.
especially nowadays, like you said, this was almost a decade ago, where it was
Right.
still pretty rare. But nowadays there are so many creators in whatever random small town you live in. I guarantee you that there's at least one other,
Person doing
person.
something
Yeah.
related to content creation, whether it's,
Yeah.
a different
So
platform or a different kind of way they're going about it.
yeah,
Definitely.
so reach out. I think this is a good opportunity to bring up also how to approach people correctly
That's a good one too.
because this is something that's been on my mind a lot because I can give the juxtaposition of you who is my long like we've been friends for
Yeah.
ever now and I cannot imagine not being friends with you
Same.
versus I had another person who I met around this very same time. We also worked on a brand campaign together, and the second that we met she was like, let's go get lunch, like let's hang out. And I was really excited because I was new in town. I didn't really have any friends of my own. I was very excited to like meet a girlfriend, have somebody who
Hmm.
wanted to hang out. And I go to this, we actually went to dinner and she just harassed me with like business advice. Like
Oh
she
my
was just like,
gosh.
so and not even like she was trying to start the exact same thing that I was doing. She was trying to start social media freelancing and it was just like, how do you get clients? How do you do this? So it's like kind of like a competitor type of situation where
Right.
she was just picking my brain for free. And I was like, okay, maybe she'll at least pay for my dinner
Yeah.
because I just
You're
gave
like,
her
I'm
this like
giving her
free.
literally everything.
Yeah,
And that's
no, no.
and that puts you in a really hard spot too, because
Yeah.
you came into this thinking it was a friend thing. If she
Mhm.
would have right away just said, hey, this
Yeah.
is the expectation, then you would be like, okay, cool,
Yep.
whatever.
And
And
then
then
I
maybe
could
she would even
say yes or no.
feel, yeah, exactly. She would feel like, okay, I'll cover your dinner or,
Yeah.
I'll treat you to coffee or something like that. But instead it
Yeah.
was like this facade friendship meeting.
Yeah, and I think there's also even if that were the case, even if I were to be like, "Hey Ryan, like really admire your work. I'm trying to become a creator. I
Yeah.
would love to learn from you." I'm still going to come with an offer though, something that I can provide
Right.
you.
If I was, yeah, you have
And
to.
yeah, and like I think a lot of people think, "Oh, well, I'm just getting started, I don't have a business, I don't have a following yet. What could I offer you?" But there's
Right.
something. Maybe you work in IT and you're like, if you struggle with security issues or whatever, I'm happy like whatever. Like there's something that you
Right.
can provide people in exchange. Or like, "Hey, I would love to help you take some Instagram photos if you would be willing to, answer some of my questions." Like
Yeah, that's a
there's
great
always
one.
something that you can do just to if you're going to approach it from that angle of like let's have a value a knowledge exchange or
Right.
also just do you have a rate for consulting that always works.
Honestly,
I
I
mean,
mean, if I really wanted it and I knew this person was like the perfect person to talk to, I might even
mhm,
approach it like that. Versus
mhm,
like, I think sometimes people think like, well, maybe we will become friends, but I'm like, you can kind of tell vibes wise. But that's why I think initially what we did of like kind of talking a bit more and relishing, I guess, more in like
yeah,
what we both were doing to a degree, versus focusing on like, let's get down to business,
mhm,
kind of deal. I think helps a lot. I mean, there was even, but sometimes it's okay to get down to business too, because
yeah,
you kind of sparked how someone recently just said, "Hey, I'm a photographer, and I'd like love to take photos with you around Detroit." I'm like,
yeah,
and I'm like, yeah, like that sounds great, and like we haven't done it yet, but like I know that that's on the table, and might
yep,
connect, might have a business contact now, or
yep,
like someone to help with photos and things like that, which is always needed.
Yeah.
And I really liked that they were upfront and honest versus being like, hey, it's
Yeah.
kind of like even like, let's talk about brand deals with networking
Yeah.
too and how businesses, only because it just happened. And I talked about this, I think, on a previous episode where people reaching out to influencers need to be aware that what they're offering and what
Mhm.
they're kind of what the other person might feel
Mm.
as a content creator, because I get reached out to for like, hey, come to this restaurant and we'll treat
Yeah.
you, but we also want a reel, a story, and what have you. And honestly, if I
Yeah.
was a business owner, I wouldn't ask for content, because if somebody likes their experience and there's someone who creates lifestyle content, they'll probably want to share it anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think it's almost like it comes across weird, which I consider this networking when they're like
Yeah.
kind of reaching out to creators in this way, to not pay any money, but then also we do ask that you make a reel, or something like that, which like is kind of like the creme de la creme of ad space. I would say, at least for like
Mhm.
me, who's like a short form video creator. I'm thinking like
Yeah, that's a lot of
for a like
value.
$50 and meal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, and it's not everything, and like sometimes it is nice just to share something, but that you just don't know what that content creator is going through right now. They might have a bunch of brand deals coming up, so
Yeah,
um I don't
for
know,
sure.
but that was just
Yeah.
thinking about that, of like that kind of network relationship too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think businesses can network with creators as well. Um, but yeah, you have to understand the difference between networking and a sponsorship or
Right.
a brand deal. Networking is, hey, we're having a happy hour, free drinks, whatever,
Come
come meet
on
other
over.
creators, come see the space, whatever.
Right.
And but to your point, if you like it, you'll post about it or you'll inquire about whatever, working with them or whatever the next steps are.
Mm,
But yeah, if there's like a list of deliverables, that's a job.
right.
That's a and you should be paid for it.
Right.
So
Maybe that's the point that everyone can stick to too. Of like, if you're giving a list of deliverables, or like mentally, if you're messaging someone and you have your own personal list of deliverables to get out of this
yeah.
like arrangement, or like if you're meeting for coffee,
Yep.
think about what you're going to pay them or offer them or whatever.
Yes.
Because I think it's totally fine. It's just you got to make sure you're always going in knowing, thinking out just like the social kind of makeup of it. You know what's really funny
Absolutely.
too about our meeting that I think I remembered is that I had stopped drinking alcohol and you were
Yeah.
drinking. Obviously,
Yeah.
and like you're still in the same bandwagon, and so am I for the
Yeah.
most part. And we met up at a bar.
I know. That is so
And we
funny.
both were like, "Well, what are you gonna order?" And we're like, "Well, we all don't drink, so like mocktails."
Yeah. Fun.
that,
I
that was really like, I feel like that was like a cute connecting moment too. Or
yeah.
I don't remember if that happened the first time, but it happened early on. I was just
Mhm.
like, "Oh, good, that's cool."
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I think something else too about us, at least, or I think it sounds weird, but it's like I think it is important to know what you want out of a relationship.
Yeah.
That's true for any relationship, right? And I think something that I see a lot of people do when they struggle with, like, oh, I can't make friends as a content creator, or I don't feel like I have
Mm,
support as a content creator, is they either expect their friends, like their accountant friend or their lawyer friend or, whatever, retail salesperson friend, to be their like cheerleader.
right.
Um, or they expect their content creator networking people to be their best friends from high school. And
Right.
like, I think it's important to figure out kind of what role people serve in your life. Again, that sounds like really, like, I don't know, kind of like weird,
No, but
but
it's
it's,
true.
yeah, everyone
Hmm.
has like a different kind of, I go to you for certain things that I wouldn't go to my friend who works at the mall and vice versa,
Right.
And I think it's important, if you want to make friends with other creators, that you also treat them like human beings and make space and time for your relationship outside of just work, if that is important to you. because I have friends who are creators who I would consider more just like networking, like
Yeah.
colleague friends. It's like, oh, if I see them at an event, I'll hang out with them, but I'm not gonna text them about my
Right.
breakup or whatever. Whereas you are like both to me. And so it's important for me that I'm not always just like shoving a camera in your face and vice versa. Like I would probably feel some type of way if every time it's like paparazzi every time you
Like
come
we're getting
over.
coffee. Woohoo.
Yeah.
I kind of
Yeah.
like though whenever you whip out the camera, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
no,
Yeah.
I believe that like not to get too like mushy and sentimental too, but I would say like it's okay too to like have the role they play
Yeah.
to kind of be a little bit, again, the English language is limiting. Idolization, but in a very like positive way of you see someone that represents the type of person you never thought you'd find. That was Latasha for me. And it's amazing because you can just like they get it. They get
Hmm.
this kind of weird life. I mean, for both of us, we are chasing very weird careers that nobody was telling me great thinking when
Yeah.
I was spending 2 years without making money making TikToks. You know what I mean? No, I
Yeah.
mean like people were like, that's really cool. You're getting a lot of reach. That's awesome. But nobody was like, you're gonna make a career out of this and you're gonna be so
Yep.
successful with it and it's gonna last you years.
Yeah. For sure.
Nobody was building me up in that way. But you, like, it was so refreshing every time. And this is like the benefit of when you
Hmm.
can find people in the content creator space. Every time I came to you with just like a success or just talking about life in general, it
Yeah.
was just so unbelievably refreshing
Hmm.
to not feel like I look like a crazy person. And not
Yeah.
that like my close friends and family were making me, some of them were making me feel crazy
Yeah.
at the time. And like
Yeah.
some of them aren't really friends anymore.
Hmm.
But it's because, but now it's easy to be supportive when there's proof out there,
Yeah.
aka me getting like paid partnerships.
Hmm.
But having you in my back corner as
Yeah.
this like, it's almost like you became like a part of the fam, like right
Yeah.
away. Oddly, like right away though. But like
Yeah.
it's not like we were like super close in that
Yeah.
like best friendy way. Like we were,
Yeah.
but we weren't. I mean, we were
Yeah.
traveling like when we did our trips together,
Yeah.
I think that us chasing this same dream bonded
Hmm.
us closer than us being like actually like now we're more like the best friendy vibe
Yeah.
when we hang
Yeah.
out, especially. But we
Yeah.
definitely weren't, but yet we were going to like Montreal together.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Do you feel that too?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a part of your life that I feel like a lot of people don't get. And even if, like I said, I was like hiding my YouTube and content creation for so
Right.
long from my real friends and family. But even once I wasn't, it's like people don't get it's not that anyone necessarily has bad intentions by it, but they
Mm.
don't understand how big of a deal it is if you're like, I just got my first brand deal and maybe
Right.
it's only $100 or something. And your friend might be like, oh, $100, like, why do you
Right.
care? But like, as a fellow creator, it's like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like,
Right. It's
you
working. Like
understand the,
you
yeah,
actually were able to make a living off of being creative in yourself. Like that's
yes.
wild.
Yeah. Like I don't think non-internet people, like I said, mean anything bad by it. It's just they don't really
No.
get it.
Yeah.
They don't really get it when I'm like, sorry, Ryan, I can't hang out on a Saturday because I'm gonna be working. Like
Right.
my friends are like, what? You work on the weekends? Or, don't you work for yourself? Can't you just like not do it? It's like,
Yeah.
like they just don't understand. So
You're like, no,
yeah, it
I actually
is.
spent Tuesday not working and we hung out, remember? And then
Yeah.
so like Saturday I do have to put in like an hour because I literally took the
Yeah.
whole half day on Tuesday
Yeah.
without
Or
having to ask anybody.
or I want to, like, especially
Or I just
when,
want
because
to. Right.
when you and I met, we were both working more traditional. I mean, I was running my business and I was like contract somewhere, but I was
Right.
pretty much still in like 9 to 5
Yeah,
life,
you're a
you
little
know?
traditional energy.
Yeah. So it's like, no, I saw this bigger goal
Mhm.
outside of that world. And yeah, like we both had to hustle a little bit to get there and do both for a little bit before we could get here where we can take Tuesdays off or whatever
Right.
now. So yeah, it is a special bond, I think, to find somebody who gets it.
Yeah, and I think that's like all the more motivation for anyone listening to just maybe take that step to reach out to somebody because
Yeah.
I don't know if you're like, you might be feeling the same way we felt about not having someone in your back corner as much. And I can say now, especially having someone like Latasha in my back corner, just to even talk to, because as time goes on in the content creation journey, and I think Latasha can vouch for this too, that things only get a little bit more complicated to where
Yeah.
like you think you have every situation where you know what you're gonna do,
Mhm.
and then like for me, a brand deal comes along for a product that I'm like, do I want to promote this? I don't
Mhm.
know, like kind of deal.
Yeah.
Or do I want to align this, kind of situation? And it's just nice to have other people who get it to where
Yep.
like, let's say like some of my other friends who I love, 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 love dearly,
Mhm.
I would have to catch them up on so much related
Yeah.
to the content world of things. Um,
Yeah.
to get their advice. And a lot of them, even in the initially, I mean, again, like they didn't, I don't think meant any malicious intent, but just they weren't people who ran their own business. They weren't people
Yeah.
who were content creators. And I've been doing that for like 6 or 7 years now. And I remember there was some like tension time with some other friends where they said something and I said, well, like I didn't want to have to be this way, but I kind of like was like, well, once you start your business and run it for
Yeah.
a year, you can tell me what
Right.
you like, tell me what to do kind of deal.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to feel like that defensive energy.
Mhm.
Even though I'm a slightly defensive, I get really defensive a little easily.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So
So
where
interesting.
can outside of cold pitching
Mhm.
people, cold
Cold
outreach,
pitching on Instagram
cold
Messenger.
pitching friends, um, where have you met other creators? Like, do you go to networking events? Do you
Yeah, I feel like so I do go to events. I actually don't go to them as often just because it kind of ties in with that whole like businesses not really being as honest. But this one
Mhm.
was very honest, and my friend was actually hosting. I went to recently over the holidays, and it was actually really nice. And I did meet actually one or two people out of the group
Mhm.
that I felt like I related to a lot. And I actually like reached out to the one and I said, "Hey, would you ever want to just like grab coffee and hang out?" And they didn't get back to me, which that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think that it was cool just to meet some people that were in very different uh content worlds as me
Mhm.
too. And like one of them
Mhm.
was from like New York and had been a transplant here. Uh,
Yeah.
so it was really cool just to see talk to different people. What's funny is that two of the people at this gig who were content creators and very like pretty successful ones around Metro Detroit were both went to high school with me, which is just
Oh,
wild that
cool.
out of like 3 out of the 15 people that were there all went to the same high school together. I was like, what was
Yeah.
that what were they teaching that got us, to like do
Yeah.
content
Interesting.
creation? What about you though?
Yeah. So, I mean, I just went like a month ago. I went to my first event in Detroit in a very long time. Like you said, when I was really big into like more local content, there really weren't a lot of us
Mm-mm.
um in that era. So it's a new day. It's a new dawn. And now I don't live in the city. So they invited me to this event. It was like a Galentine's Day event.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that was my first time doing something like very local in a while that is specific to content creation.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I do because of the industry I'm in like social media and business entrepreneurship, I do a lot of conferences
Mhm.
around the country, really. And those have been good to meet other entrepreneurs and potential clients and things like that. But it's very rare that I get to meet people who do exactly what I do. So that was a
Right.
pretty cool experience. I mean, again, going to the introvert thing, I shared this in my vlog. Like when I shared this event, I shared some tips because those events can really not feel comfortable for me, to
Mhm.
be honest. And I think they can feel that way for a lot of people, probably. So I think it's important to know that probably everybody feels a little awkward, even the most extroverted, like loud
Yeah.
people there. I don't think anyone walks into the like a
Oh,
room of strangers and
yeah.
is like, "This is amazing. I love this."
I consider myself more of an extrovert, a little bit introvert, which I think the content side almost comes into play there.
Mhm.
Um, but the event I went to, they had, was it you I was talking with, or was it maybe someone else where like we were talking about like how they should structure the events to make it
Yeah.
better, and
Yeah.
that this one had assigned seating. And I
Mm.
said, don't do that,
Yeah.
because I went over to my assigned seat and nobody was on my left or right. And I was like,
Aw.
and I
You
knew the
just
host,
sit
luckily,
in
you know what I mean?
silence.
So
Yeah.
like my friend who was hosting, I was like, hey, let's see, I'm not gonna sit here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of deal. But some people were like actually sitting in their assigned seats, and I said like they need
Mhm.
to,
Yeah.
and it was a very like it wasn't a quiet sit down moment. It was a very rambunctious establishment.
Yeah.
So like I'm like assigned seating is not gonna work. I was moving around to even have to talk to anybody, which
Yeah.
moving around, it almost felt like I was arriving at the high school lunch table and I didn't know anybody and I was trying to make a
Yes.
friend.
Yep.
Like that's how it
Same.
literally felt. So, oh, and
Same.
we said like don't have people bring dates. Don't like
Yes.
no significant others. Like as much as I
Yes.
love my husband, no
For sure.
significant others because it or just friends, anybody.
Uh-huh.
Like no
Yeah.
bringing additional people.
Yeah, and
It,
that's one of the reasons that I went to this event is because it was like a Galentine's Day event. So it was, I guess supposed to be like girls' night out, like
mm,
ladies leave your man at home, okay? Um, which they did like leave their man at home, but you could bring a plus one at this event.
oh,
So
see.
and I didn't have time to really find anyone. Slash, I don't really know very many like local creators who would have wanted to come because they had to be a content creator
Yeah, they
as
should have
well.
allowed the gays to go there because then I could have
I mean,
came and
I'm sure there would have been an exception, but like I
right.
got the invite honestly like a few days before. So it was just kind of like not enough time. And also I
I
was
want
kind
everything to start it being like girls and gays. Like
it's
any of these events that are separate, I'm like, just let us come.
yeah, Galentine's Day
Ooh, there we go.
next year. But yeah, but also I kind of wanted to do it alone because I was like, oh, this is like a big moment of like new era for me and my
Mm,
personal life and like yeah like let's do a solo event and this is a good opportunity to do it because hopefully other people will be solo too.
right,
Nobody else was solo that I
right.
saw. Everybody else was paired up with their girlfriends or whatever, which is fine, but I do think that it makes it so that you don't mingle. You don't talk to
Yeah,
strangers. You like I felt so awkward having to like walk into a corner of paired up people and be like, "Hi,
right.
I'm Latasha." But I did. Like you have to push yourself out of that comfort
You
zone.
and then you having to go to like two people who like you and I are at this event, we'd probably be like snickering in the corner, a little bit,
Yeah.
not in the corner per se, but just like we'd be like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so like to have to be the person that walks up to us, like,
Yeah.
hi, even though like I would say we're very friendly people, we'd be
Of
like,
course.
hi,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you don't know
It's
how that
awkward.
person's gonna react. Yeah.
Yep.
Because
For sure.
I've gone up to people before and they've been very unfriendly.
Yes, for
So,
sure. Ooh, okay. That reminds me of my tea that I want to share,
oh, gotcha.
which is not really
Oh, let me
helpful.
sip.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sip your tea. Here's my non existent tea. This is not really helpful. I don't really think there's a takeaway from this for you guys outside of it's just funny. But at one of those early Gen Beauty events, I did go with a friend, like a internet friend.
Yes.
We actually had never met before this. We shared a hotel room and everything. It was kind of just looking back, I'm like, wow, that's like intense. But she was very nice. So I was taking a picture of her because they had like the little red carpet with the wall and stuff like that. And so I was taking a picture for her. And this beauty guru, uh, he was huge, like a huge creator. I mean, probably at that point, at least a million
Yeah.
subscribers on YouTube. I'm sure he's like way beyond that now. He literally pushed me out of the way, like to get in front of the ring. Like he shoved me physically, put his hands on me and shoved me out of the way. Yeah. And I was like, oh my goodness, like what is going on? And so, yeah, like I said, there's not really a takeaway for that because I wish there was like piece of advice that came from it. But I guess the piece of advice is sometimes don't meet your heroes, like
Yeah.
that's probably even a different topic outside of just networking. But yeah, like some people suck. Like some people are not
Right.
the personas that they put out of themselves on the internet. I
No.
mean, I really never watched his content. So maybe that was his
Yeah.
brand, that he was like this diva, like rude
Yeah.
person. But yeah, he sucked and I will never support him. And it
You have to tell
was
me once we're
I
off
will.
mic,
I
because I
will. I don't want to
want
get
to know.
sued.
I don't even
Um
no, I do not know who it is.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just wild. So keep that in mind. Like, I guess the advice I could share is like, don't let that get you down though, either,
Yeah,
because I still went into the event. I still had fun with my friend. I still took my cute pictures. It's like there are going to be rude people or people who are like, why are you talking to me? Or, oh,
yeah,
you only have this many followers and whatever. And just
yeah,
like, those people are insecure. That is insecurity speaking,
yeah.
honestly.
It really is. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have any tea that can beat being shoved by an influencer out of a
Give me the
ring
tea
light.
on Metro Detroit content creators. Who's the rudest one? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But I will say, just to touch on it, when you go to like these influencer events, and you get invited to things, it is a really interesting dynamic because some people will like at that specific one. And again, like, and also like I'm 31, which is not old. And in my mind, I am such a kid. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm Gen Z. The fact that part of my career is content creator, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, I feel useful, but there were like the vibe there. I felt it was a little bit like, and this is not a downer on anybody
Hmm.
there, but just I felt like I was the adult and like with
Yeah.
all these kids kind of deal. Maybe it's just
Yes.
because I've been like in the game here for like 6 years, of
Yeah.
like being freelancing and like doing my own thing.
Oh, that's how
That
I
I just
feel too.
feel seasoned, I
Yeah.
guess, in a certain way. Even though I related to them a bunch.
Hmm.
But I thought it's interesting because the moment I was meeting people, they said, "Okay, so what kind of content do you do?" Like,
Hmm.
it was kind of like almost like I went to like a music camp and they were like, "What
Yeah.
instrument do you play?"
Yeah.
Or in when I lived in Chicago, the first thing people would ask there is like, what do you work? What's
Yeah.
your job?" Like, it was very important. And so
Yep.
that was just an interesting dynamic because it put business first versus
Hmm.
just like having a conversation,
Yeah.
you know, about what it is. And I was like, I make funny videos about
I
Michigan. They're like, okay, cool. Not that it was a negative, but one funny thing was that one of the people I met who right away was like, what kind of content do you do? I was like, I think like I just make like funny stuff about Michigan and like some like fun like food stuff in Detroit. They're like,
yeah.
okay, cool. They then we both went our own ways. The event's going on. I'm sitting kind of like off to the side with my one friend. He comes over and he just goes, "Oh my gosh, you're that guy," which
Yeah.
was actually a very like, you're kind of like surrounded by peers a little bit,
Hmm.
in a way of like all these
Yeah.
content creators. It was very cool that like somebody felt that much emotion. So
Yeah.
I would say like you can get some like big positive stuff that like to me like
Totally.
I'll never forget that. I don't think that I was at this event of creators and one of them felt like he was like so excited that I was like there in
Hmm.
that moment. And
Yeah.
so you get kind of like that special feeling and a little bit of like helps with the imposter syndrome,
Yeah. For
and
sure.
adding like a little bit of credibility and that kind of trickles down, I think, into things like brand deals or just like working with other people in general
Absolutely.
or
Yeah.
ideation.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like last year at Social Media Marketing World, after you do your talk, they siphon all the questions out to the hallway. And
mm.
I have the pictures are so funny. I felt like I was like a beetle, like so many people coming up to me. Who were like, oh my gosh, I watch your YouTube. And like, can I get a
Yeah.
picture with you? And, can you
Oh, that's
sign this
awesome.
thing? And yeah, it's like those little things are really irreplaceable
Yeah.
because it can feel you're staring at a screen, and of course we see those are real humans. Like, of course I
Right.
acknowledge those are real humans on the other side. And we love your comments, which we'll
Right.
have a call to action for in just about a minute. But yeah, like of course we recognize you as humans, but there is nothing comes close to like
No.
having a real hug or a handshake or taking a picture with someone. Like, it really puts it all into
Yeah,
perspective of why you're doing this.
that's so true. Like the in-person stuff really makes the biggest difference, especially for me.
Yeah.
And I would say like something in between that though, for people who maybe aren't getting that in person, that just as like a side tip I just thought of is that I've started to like look at my views where if like for me on like a short, or on a YouTube reel or
Instagram
on
reel?
a
YouTube
reel,
short?
just
Yeah.
on Instagram. like 2,000 views would be like very low for me in the scheme of
Yeah.
things. But I've started to look at that and picture like I've performed in a lot of concert venues. I've been
Mhm.
in a choir. I was in a choir for literally 10 years. Um and I go to stadiums and I
Yeah.
really picture like I'll even like think of like okay for some videos like U of M Stadium has 50,000 seats or whatever it is. It's like huge. I just
Yeah.
got that many views. Like that
Yeah.
many people saw it. So for
Yeah.
2,000, one of our concert venues that I sang at a lot had that total. And I started to
Mhm.
picture all those people
Yeah.
watching it. And I feel like it really is helping me um, it's helping me just
Yeah.
feel the impact, which kind of ties in with
Absolutely.
what you were saying of like the in-person stuff does help with, which it's all the more joy of networking and going to events. And I really need to go to more. Maybe we should do an event. Just gonna
Yeah,
put
we
that out
should.
there of
Yeah.
like maybe get like some kind of like place to sponsor it, and just
Yeah,
like
for
have a
sure.
time where it's like you literally maybe we do one where we say like you literally don't have to create like maybe
Yeah.
like you and I will promote it like
Yeah.
on the side so that
Yeah.
no one there else has to and
Yeah.
just say like hey can you sponsor like we just really want to get people together
Yeah,
to
for sure.
have apps and talk.
Well, we did one before,
Huh?
we did one
We
before
did do one before
long time ago. I can
at a
put
coffee
some
shop, which was a
B-roll.
good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. And I have a studio now, so we can do a meetup someday
That's true.
maybe
We can
or
do the studio now. See?
but anyway,
But anyway, guys, leave
we'll
a
keep you guys
comment.
posted. Yeah, tell us what you would do. Tell us if you're local,
Yeah.
what you would want to do. Would you want to do like a casual, you know, meetup? Would you want to do a meetup at a restaurant, a coffee
I
shop?
love coffee shops, so now I'm feeling coffee shop, but
Yeah.
let us know what you want.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah, if you guys want to leave a review on this podcast, if you're listening, those I think really I feel like the reviews really help boost it up
Yeah.
so that it reaches more content creators around and we can all get this group growing that much more and subscribe on YouTube if you're listening or watching.
Yeah.
And other than that, we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.